This is our last lesson in Respectable Sins, and it's on worldliness. The book does stem everything from ungodliness, and I think this is still the key to understanding how we're going to think about worldliness. So, ungodliness is defined as living one's everyday life with little or no thought of God or of God's will or of God's glory or of one's dependence on God. So, to be ungodly means that you don't think about God during your life. Okay, ungodliness is our most basic sin. All of our other acceptable sins can be traced to this root sin of ungodliness. While you may not be mindful of him, he is certainly aware of you and sees every deed you do, hears every word you say, and knows every thought you think. So even though we might be ungodly, God is still God. And so when you apply that to worldliness now, you think about how we live in the world, but we don't have any thoughts of God as we're living in the world. Okay, so worldliness is being attached to, engrossed in, or preoccupied with the things of this temporal life. The things of this temporal life may or may not be sinful in themselves. What makes our attitude toward things that are not sinful worldliness is the high value we put upon them. Okay, so we're living in the world, and if we are having the sin of worldliness, that means that we are not paying attention to God, but we're living in the world without any thought to God, and we're just going about it, being preoccupied with things that aren't sinful in themselves, but we make them sinful because that's all we think about. That's what we care about. That's what we love. Okay, and so some verses here to tie it in. Okay, 1 John 2:15-16. This is probably the main verse that talks about worldliness, but interestingly, the author of the book doesn't tie it here, but he does mention it, so let me show this to you. Do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the desires of the flesh and the desires of the eyes and pride of life is not from the Father, but is from the world. Okay, so very clearly, don't love the world. And this is the verse that the author of Respectable Sins actually ties his thesis to. Is actually 1 Corinthians. It says, "This is what I mean, brothers. The appointed time has grown very short. From now on, let those who deal with the world as though they had no dealings with it. For the present form of this world is passing away." And so he's saying that even though we live in the world and we have to be in the world, we should be in the world as if we had no dealings with it. So it's kind of a weird thing to say, but it's like, yeah, go live in the world, but live in the world as if you're not really living in the world. So it's kind of like a circular type of thing, okay? Aaron, go live your life. You're living life in the world, but live your life in the world as if you're not living life in the world. It's very strange. And the point would be, okay, what does that mean then? If I'm in the world, but I'm not supposed to live in the world, where am I supposed to live in?
Not in the world.
Yeah, not in the world. And so for the Christian, that would mean in heaven with God, having the heavenly mindset, having a godly mindset, having a mindset of Christ, right? Don't be living in the world. Live in God's world, the things of God, the world of the Bible, if you want me to bring it back to our activity that we had earlier. And then the reason is because the present form of this world is passing away. Okay, so this life that we live in, the world that we live in is temporary, not eternal. Even though like things are significant now, some things are not significant for eternity. Anyways, practically, the author of the book lists 3 areas of examples of worldliness. Okay, he says dealing with money, he says immorality, and he says idolatry. I am going to focus on idolatry, okay, but let me run through the first 2 really quick. So an example of worldliness for money would be like, okay, yeah, like you have a job and then all you care about and all you think about and what you love is just making money all the time. Okay, obviously, very worldly. Okay, very worldly way to live. Money is not a bad thing in itself. Okay, money is a good thing. We're able to do good things with money. As a matter of fact, God uses money to do his purposes. He doesn't need it, but sometimes that's what he uses. And so money can be sinful when it becomes like all you care about. Immorality. Now, immorality, it's interesting because immorality is obviously very bad, right? But the way that he frames immorality in the book is that he calls it like a vicarious immorality. And what he means by that is that, like, okay, maybe you're not the one doing immoral things, but you like care about people's lives that are immoral, and like you think about it and you find like pleasure in seeing that. Now, the book was written like way before our current state of the internet, and I thought that was very interesting because with our current state of the internet, we are able to see people living immoral lives, and we can live vicariously through people's immoral lives. And so that would be a respectable sin, because while you might not be the one doing the immoral acts, you might find like joy or satisfaction or pleasure in watching people do bad things. And so that would be a respectable sin of immorality, because even though you're not doing it, you're still like looking at it. Okay. And the third one is idolatry, which is the one I want to get into. And I think it's more appropriate probably for our class. And let me show you this. Okay. So idolatry would be making things your idols. Okay, things that things that should not be God become God in your life. So it is very much like the money one, right? Because it's like, okay, money should not be your God, but you make it your God. But with idolatry, he just like broadens it. So it's not money, but it could be anything. It could be technology. It could be relationships. It could be the clothes that we wear. Okay, so idolatry or like physical possessions. Okay, that could be idolatry. And so idolatry would be worldliness. Anyways, this is a verse. It says, "So we are always of good courage. We know that while we are at home in the body, we are away from the Lord. So whether we are at home or away, we make it our aim to please him." And he ties this verse to idolatry because when we make idols of things, we're not aiming to please God, but with idols, we use idols to like please ourselves. Like that's what we care about. We only care about our own gratification, our own desires, our own wants, and that's what makes it idolatry. In order to get rid of idols, we need to be able to say, okay, God, I want everything I do to be for you and for your glory, and so I'm going to give you my idols, and I'm going to live my life as if you are truly God, as if you are truly who I say that you are. You know, my God, the one that I care about, the one I love about, and I want to live my life for you. When we go to idols, we strip God of those titles, and we're not aiming to please God anymore, but we aim to please ourselves. Okay, this was a verse that I thought was very good. And a lot of times we say that we're in the world, but we're not of the world. This article that I read from Desiring God says that we shouldn't say that, but we should actually say that we're not of the world, but we're sent into the world. Okay, so remember, the topic is worldliness. And so I was trying to wrestle with this by saying, okay, is it really possible for me to not live a worldly life when I'm living in the world? Like that, it just seems like really hard. Like I really don't know how I'm going to do this. And so this article, it brought to my attention that like, okay, when Jesus is talking, he actually says, Christians, you're sent into the world. And that's a better way to think about how you can live in this world, is actually you're sent into it. Okay, so let's read the verse. It says, "But now I am coming to you, and these things I speak in the world, that they may have my joy fulfilled in themselves. I have given them your word, and the world has hated them because they are not of the world, just as I am not of the world." Okay, so this is Jesus talking, right? Jesus is saying, yes, I am not of the world, okay? "I do not ask that you take them out of the world." Okay, so Jesus talking to God, saying, don't take them out of the world, but that you keep them from the evil one. "They are not of the world, just as I am not of the world. Sanctify them in the truth. Your word is truth. As you sent me into the world, so I have sent them into the world." And that's the key right there, okay? As God the Father sent Jesus Christ into the world, so Jesus Christ has sent us, his children, into the world. "And for their sake, I consecrate myself, that they also may be sanctified in truth." And so I think that it's helpful to think of our lives this way, where it's like, yeah, like we are Christians, okay, citizens of heaven, children of God. We are not children of this world, but we have been sent into the world as Christians, as God's children, to be ambassadors for Christ, to represent him in this world that we live in. And so therefore, that makes it a lot easier to say, okay, yeah, I can be in this world, but I know that my citizenship is in heaven. And so I live as if I am an ambassador of Jesus Christ. I represent him. And yeah, of course, I need to eat the food. I need to do the things that I need to do here in order to make a living. But ultimately, I am of God. I am sent by Jesus. And I think that's a great way to think about how we are to live in the world. Okay, so let's go back to this issue of idolatry, which I said I wanted to hit on the most. Okay, and he starts with work. Okay, and for me, it was hard for me to parse out how he took work different from money, but I can see how he did it. Okay, because work doesn't necessarily mean money. Okay, you can make an idol of work just by working, just by being a workaholic, just by saying that, oh, my identity is in what I do. Okay, that can be separate from putting your identity in how much money you make. All right, and so I think that's how he says this, and so that's how I want to present it to you. So maybe you don't work right now, but what I think would be a good application for you is that you are in school making grades, and that is your work. Okay, your work is the effort that you put into school, and you're not making money, but you're making grades. Okay, and so that's how I would see this from your standpoint. If your aim is to please God, rather than climb the corporate ladder or be the most outstanding professional, okay, or namely have the highest grade in the class or be the best student in your field, then you will avoid the temptation to make an idol of your work. Okay, so he's saying that, like, look, no matter what you do, if you can make it your aim to please God in the things that you do, then you won't make idols of the things that you do. Okay, so you go to school. If you can make it your aim to please God in how you go about doing your schoolwork, and how you go about taking your tests, doing your homework, if your aim is to please God, then school cannot be your idol. It won't be your idol, because you'll be able to dedicate the correct amount of time to it. You'll be able to do it in the right way, and you'll be able at the end of the day to say, hey, I can put this down and I can say, God, I did this for you, not for me. Of course, that's a very heart type of thing that you have to do. Like, you can't check it off of a box, right? You have to really examine your attitude and say, are these things that I'm doing for God, or is it for myself? This can also apply to political or cultural issues. The way that you look at politics, the way that you look at things of the world, if your aim is to look at it and go about it in the way that God wants, then it doesn't become an idol. Okay, because God is the standard and everything else flows through him. Same thing with sports and video games. You can do sports in such a way where your aim is to do the sport or do the activity for God and not for yourself. Same thing with video games. There is a way where you can play video games where you can say, okay, I'm going to do this as enjoyment underneath God, not necessarily for myself. Okay, so again, these are very difficult things to do because they're all like examining your attitudes and your reasons for doing things. And that takes some wrestling. Okay, that takes some examination of your hearts to it. Let me see if I can give you an example. I mean, for me, right, the most applicable one would be the work one, right? So if I go to work and I say, okay, all I want to do here is I just want to go to work in order to make money to provide for my family. That's not necessarily a bad thing, okay? It's not, because providing for your family is a good thing, right? But if that was my number one goal and not God, then work could become an idol in that sense, because I'm doing it for my family and for myself, not for God. If I said that work is for God, then all of this family stuff and making money stuff, that falls underneath God. And so I can say, God, I'm going to go to work today. I'm going to have the right attitude when I do it. I'm going to trust you to do it. I'm not going to like work super hard for my own self to make me look good, but I'm going to work hard so that you are good and glorious, to make you good and glorious. Then I think that would be okay. I think that would be okay. And again, that's a attitude type of thing. Yeah, so this whole issue of idolatry, I guess that makes sense. That it comes down to how we perceive who God is in our hearts, and then how it relates to everything else that we live in with this world. Okay, so maybe some practical applications on how we can combat the worldliness that we deal with. So how can we deal with our tendencies towards worldliness? He says that it's not by determining that we will not be worldly, but by committing ourselves to becoming more godly. We need to grow in our relationship with him and begin to view all aspects of life through the lens of his glory. And I thought that this was pretty profound, because the author of the book, he's saying that, like, look, it actually might be impossible to not be worldly, but instead you become more godly in the world. And I think that's pretty incredible, because Jesus Christ himself, I don't think he went into his life thinking like, okay, how can I be less like the world? How can I not be stained? I think that Jesus himself was just godly himself, because he was the Son of God, right? And so he just went about his business being who he was. And so I think in the same sense, if we are Christians, children of God, if we truly are who we are in Christ, supposed to be sanctified, supposed to be holy, supposed to be able to, fight our sin and call out sin and be living underneath God, then actually we can just go through our life in the world and have a better influence that way, instead of trying to say, oh, I shun the world, trying to be a monk, basically. No, we can go through life and just be godly, and that would be salt and light. That would be being a credible witness in the world. And so I think that's a good aim, Try to be more godly. Try to live not with ungodliness in your life, but with godliness. Always living under the influence and presence of God in your life. And of course, the only way you do that is by Bible reading, prayer, coming to church, fellowshipping with other Christians. Okay, so very basic spiritual disciplines, but that's how you live life in the world. And then to end the entire series, I think this is a fitting way to end as we talk about living in the world, but then also just as we talk about all the respectable sins. You need to be humble, always examining your heart. You ask others for accountability and for their assessment of how you live your life. And then you know that the world is watching us as Christians, but then you also remember a progressive sanctification, which means that, look, we're not perfect. Okay, so even though I'm saying that, you should be living a godly life in the world, you have to understand, it's very difficult, it's hard to do, but we should be pushing towards that holiness. We should be getting more godly as we go along in our life. As you get older, as I get older, we should be maturing into stronger and stronger Christians, able to withstand what the world gives to us. I think for me, the hardest thing about wanting to be godly or trying to live a godly life is that you don't see what's the benefit of it. I think you don't see the immediate results of it. I could work hard at work and at school, and I can see immediate results. I can see that this is actually worth it to do something, right? There's tangible results. But a tangible result for godliness is what? Holiness? Who cares? It doesn't do anything for me, really. Sometimes you'll see fruit from your labor. Maybe you might get an improved relationship a little bit, but I don't think that happens all the time. A lot of things that we do spiritually are happening on the inside, and I think for things of God to take hold and really change the world, it takes time. And a lot of times we don't work on God's timetable. God has his own agendas, and reasons and ways that he works, and we don't know that. We don't see all the time. And so for us to be on God's agenda and on his timetable and to please God, it's like, okay, God, well, there's the element of just trusting him. That when we do what he wants or what he asks or what he requires, that he will take care of whatever the outcome is. And sometimes you think like, oh man, God, I'm really trying to be a holy, living a godly life, and you don't see good results. And so sometimes you're like, man, why am I doing this, right? And so there is an element of trusting God that his plans are perfect. Good, thanks. Anybody else want to share on that? Okay, one more, and then we're all done. And these are just some challenges that I want to give to you, because there are challenges that I looked at in my own life here in terms of getting rid of worldliness or fighting our worldly tendencies. Are there areas of the world that you can just cut out of your life? Okay, and I mean that like in a very positive sense, but also like there are probably some areas that we have in our lives that are sinful or that would cause us to sin. Like, just to put it, like very practically, are there apps that you need to delete from your phone that cause you to sin? Okay, that was part of the speed dating question, right? Like, what apps do you use the most? And so, are there things that cause you to sin or that are extremely worldly that you should just cut out of your life? Maybe it's apps or maybe it's actual things. And then number 2, are there friends or activities that are causing you to be more worldly than you should be? And I use this example a lot when I'm preaching, right? It's like, okay, there's a friend group that's causing you to sin, then, you need to, or for me, it was like, okay, I saw that, and I had to take the steps in order to kind of switch friend groups a little bit. And so, are there friend groups that are causing you to be like worldly than it shouldn't? Now, the good thing about high school is that when you go to college, you get a fresh start, right? And so I think that this is also something that you can think about when you go to college. You got to choose your friends wisely. You got to choose the people that you hang out with. You got to choose the church that you're going to be a part of. These are very big decisions that have physical results for sure, but there's also spiritual results in it too. Okay, so think about these things, because when you get a chance to start over in college, or start over in college, you get it really dictates on what your spiritual life is going to be with God, and what kind of Christian you're going to be. And I think for me and Tiff, my hope for you guys is that you go into college like ready to go, head start. I think that's always our goal for you guys. It's not that we don't expect you to be like arrived, when you go to college, but we want you to be prepared to make the right decisions and to make the right choices, and to be wise about how you're going to be as a Christian.